Hello, hello, remember me, Mr. P? Welcome to my office in the urinary bladder. Since COVID, the doors to enter his office now display entry-only signs, which can be seen on either side of the bladder, where the ureters enter at an infero-medial oblique angle, forming one-way flap valves that prohibit urine from traveling back up into the ureters. Today, Mr. P has been working overtime, so the stretch receptors in the wall of the bladder send afferent signals up to the brain boss, letting him know the bladder is full, and Mr. P should really clock out soon. Once the brain boss receives these afferent signals, he sends an efferent signal, flash, down to the spinal cord. A preganglionic sympathetic axon from the sacral sympathetic trunk between the levels of T10 to L2 emerges from the ventral horn and ventral root of the spinal cord carrying flash. The preganglionic sympathetic axon then travels through a white ramus through the sympathetic chain, and it synapses with a postganglionic nerve in the inferior mesenteric ganglion. The postganglionic axon then travels to the superior hypogastric plexus and eventually converges to form the hypogastric nerve. The hypogastric nerve then joins up with the parasympathetic pelvic sphincter nerves in the inferior hypogastric plexus. It continues along towards the bladder, where it causes relaxation of the detrusor muscle and contraction of the internal urethral sphincter. At this point, flash emerges from the hypogastric nerve, telling Mr. P it is time to pack up and go home. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. Mr. P, working diligently and not listening to the orders from boss brain, Flash decides to take it upon himself to get Mr. P to leave. By way of the parasympathetic system, Flash emerges on a parasympathetic preganglionic axon at the level of S2 to S4, follows the pelvic sphincter nerves, the inferior hypogastric plexus, and to the wall of the bladder and the internal urethral sphincter, where they synapse with postganglionic neurons that cause the contraction of the detrusor muscle and relaxation of the internal urethral sphincter. Finally, in order to open the external urethral sphincter, Flash emerges in the lumbosacral plexus, where he follows the branch to the pudendal nerve, which exits the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen and returns to the perineum through the lesser sciatic foramen. The pudendal nerve then branches into the deep perineal nerve, which relaxes and opens the external urethral sphincter. At this point, Flash pulls the fire alarm, forcing Mr. P to leave work for the day via the COVID-approved one-way exit of the urethra to the outside world. Once outside the body, Mr. P is met by Mr. Poe. Mr. P takes a whiff of Mr. Poe and winces.
Mr. Poe, where are you from?
Well, let me tell you. It was all fun and games sliding down the rectum until I had to squeeze through the anal canal, past the internal and external anal sphincters, and end up here. Man, am I feeling down in the dumps.